Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espey.
First Mai, good evening. It's just gone 5 p.m. on Monday, and this is your half-hour look at what's been happening news-wise today. Coming up, we're going to be looking further afield, first of all, after a major incident was declared in Southport, where at least 8 people have been stabbed. Also tonight, a warning the Isle of Man could regularly see food shortages if the farming industry is not protected. The latest from the public inquiry into the draft North and West Area Plan, and potentially some good news for stargazers tonight. We'll have more on that a little bit later. We'll also keep you up to date for anything to watch out for travel-wise, and if you'd like to get in touch, you can text 166 177. First, though, let's join Chanel for the Manbenham News headlines.
A trade union that represents public sector workers believe the latest pay offer from government doesn't benefit lower and middle earners. A revised pay offer from the Public Services Commission was put forward earlier this month. If accepted, the offer would mean government workers receive an additional 3.25% with incremental rises over the next 2 years. Elsewhere, studies found the shingles vaccine reduces the risk of dementia. The Manx government recently announced it would be following the UK's lead in offering the shingles jab free to everybody over the age of 65. Experts at the University of Oxford said the jab, given to people on the NHS, lowers the chance of developing the condition by at least 17%. And there's a chance to see the aurora tonight. Also known as the Northern Lights, they appear when energized particles from the sun slam into the Earth's upper atmosphere and are redirected towards the North Pole. You can find out more about the best spots to watch from in Update tonight. In international news, children are among at least 8 people stabbed in Southport on Merseyside. It's believed to have happened at a centre where pregnancy and baby classes are held. A man's been arrested and a knife has been seized. Moving on, former BBC presenter Hugh Edwards has been charged with 3 counts of making indecent images of children. Police say the alleged offences, said to have taken place between December 2020 and April 2022, relate to WhatsApp messages. And Team Great Britain's won 2 golds at the Paris Olympics. The latest came when Tom Pidcock rode to victory in the cross-country mountain biking competition. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Chanel. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. It's going to be dry with bright or sunny intervals and a light southerly breeze this evening. Minimum temperatures tonight of around 12. Cloudy at first tomorrow, but that will quickly break with lengthy spells of sunshine developing for the rest of the day. Light northwest winds and a best temperature of 20 Celsius. And again on Wednesday, plenty of sunshine, light winds and top temperatures of 21. Sunset this evening will be at 9:21. Sunrise tomorrow morning just before 5:30.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
Simply income protection from Kestrel Insurance. A choice of benefits. Simple underwriting and peace of mind with a regular income for up to 2 years if you're unable to work due to illness or injury. Kestrel Insurance is registered with the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Carpetland, the carpet specialist with the island's best value carpets in stock, often fitted within a week. Furnitureland for 3-piece suites, dining and living room furniture, and a selection of amazing beds. Carpetland and Furnitureland, West Street, Ramsey.
Manx Mobility and Onken have it all. Daily living aids, wide-fitting shoes, rise recliners, beds and scooters, including lightweight and airline-approved models. Call in and see how our expert team can make your life easier. Manx Mobility at the top of Summer Hill.
At Bond Fabrics, we're not just a fabric shop. As well as curtains and upholstery and dress and costume fabrics, we've knitting and crocheting wools, made-to-measure curtain and blind service, plus poles and tracks. Visit Strand Street, Douglas, call 611856 or see bondfabrics.im.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
It's just coming up to 5:05. Well, as I said, we're going to look further afield first of all because a major incident was declared in Southport earlier after armed police arrested a man with a knife. We now understand this incident happened at a centre where pregnancy and baby classes are held. 8 people, some of them children, have been taken to hospital. 13 ambulances were at the scene earlier, as Sky's Ashna Hurinag reports.
We understand they are treating this incident as a critical one too, given the fact there is such a large emergency services presence on the scene. There clearly is still unfolding an ongoing incident involving a number of people.
Well, some eyewitnesses say they could hear the sound of screaming. Ian Uzel lives in a field nearby where part of the emergency response unfolded.
There's one air ambulance arrived, then a second one, and I thought there was something going on. There were ambulances and police cars speeding up and down the road. Then a third and a fourth air ambulance arrived. Shortly before I left, I did see what appears to be a casualty being loaded into one of the helicopters.
The UK Prime Minister has labelled what's happened horrendous and deeply shocking, while the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has thanked emergency services for their response.
I have been in contact with the Merseyside Police and Crime Commissioner and the Merseyside Mayor to convey my support to the police and our thanks to the police and emergency services for their swift and courageous response.
That's the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, speaking a little bit earlier. This story clearly unfolding, and we'll bring you the latest as soon as we have it. 6.5 minutes past 5, and the public inquiry being held into the draft North and West Area Plan finished on Friday with some contentious topics. Land next to the Pool Dewey Nature Reserve, as well as proposals for a Ramsey Marina, were included in the discussions, and our local democracy reporter Emma Draper has been covering what happened.
The session was about zoning land which may be designated as something else, or which is not designated at all. Ramsey South Beach is currently unzoned, but representatives from a group trying to get permission for a marina spoke at the inquiry to request a mixed-use development. Marlene Masker, who's part of the group, said during the inquiry that the plan for the marina has the island's best interests in mind and there are positives to the marina. She said it would be open 24/7 to allow passing ships respite, could also have flats built, and would support local water activities like paddleboarding. However, there was strong opposition from both the Manx Wildlife Trust and the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture. David Bellamy, head of conservation at the charity, set out the legal standing to the public inquiry and explained how nature reserves are protected under legislation.
As a marine nature reserve, it's protected under Section 32 of the Wildlife Act, and it also has its own bylaws, the Manx Marine Nature Reserve bylaws of 2018, which effectively prohibit any sort of construction, extraction or other development within that nature reserve. There's two reasons we are speaking today in opposition to the Ramsey South Beach proposals. First and foremost, that specific site is very important both for people and nature, and therefore we are concerned about the proposals. But also, if you build in a nature reserve, which clearly are reserved for nature, then we would be concerned that that would undermine all of the legal and policy protections to all sites protected for nature across the Isle of Man.
The land next to Pool Dewey, listed as Ballacring on the agenda, has had a planning application refused and appealed. The Cabinet Office said due to flooding risks, it wouldn't consider zoning the land for residential use in the plan at all. Now the evidence has been heard, Inquiry Inspector Brian Sims will now compile all the evidence, including the written submissions prior to the inquiry and form a report. He concluded the inquiry by saying these will be as definitive as possible, and he aims to have the report completed by September.
That's local democracy reporter Emma Draper. 8.5 minutes past 5. Now, the Isle of Man could regularly see food shortages in the next few years if its farming industry is not better protected. That's a warning that comes from the Manx National Farmers Union. Its president Ian Parsons says a number of issues are impacting the industry, including the long-term effects of Brexit.
As an industry, we were told that we would see a reduction in regulation and administration, but we certainly haven't seen that. I suppose it's very difficult. We haven't really seen any kind of benefit from it as of yet, but it's been a very difficult world we've all been living in this last 4 or 5 years, hasn't it? And there's, with the Ukraine crisis and different things, that's all probably clouded being able to see what the benefit or non-benefit of coming out of the EU has been. So on farm, on island, no, I wouldn't say we've seen much of a difference at all, except it's very, very noticeable that all commodities now are very much based on a global market, which is very, very volatile now. We used to not see great fluctuations in prices, whereas now certainly in sort of cereals and dairy, we are seeing quite huge fluctuations in world trade. Cheese markets, in grain markets, and that ultimately has to have a knock-on on the Isle of Man. Things that we can have no effect of whatsoever really can have an impact on farm businesses' ability to sell at a reasonable price.
The Isle of Man government seems to rely on a good and reliable ferry service as providing food security. This seems to be at least part of the thinking now. But the UK is not self-reliant in food, is it?
No, absolutely. The UK is nowhere near self-sufficient in food, so I think that's a very narrow-minded outlook by the government, and it's been stated in Tynwald several times that the new boat provides food security. In fact, I think it was even said once by our own agricultural minister. But the UK is nowhere near self-secure in food production, and our government needs to realise that food's got to travel a long way up the UK before it gets to Heysham to travel to the Isle of Man. So if there is shortages, and I truly believe in the next 10 years there will be shortages of food, and supermarket shelves will be empty at times, and we saw that initially with the Ukraine crisis, we saw it at times during COVID, but I don't think it'll be just because of world events like that going forward. The world population is growing. The area of the world to produce food is reducing, and the Isle of Man could see itself very, very vulnerable going forward, and it's a case of use it or lose it for the agricultural industry, I think, in the Isle of Man right now.
That's the Manx National Farmers Union President Ian Parsons. He was talking there to Phil Gaughan. We have asked government to respond to those claims if they wish. 11 minutes past 5. Let's turn our attention to business. Some lovely business news this evening, and a charity which supports Manx residents who need UK hospital treatment and also supports bereaved families. Well, they've been given a financial boost following the KPMG prom relay this month. Arlo's Adventure is the cause that KPMG and the Crown Dependencies has chosen to support for this year. And that relay on the prom raised more than £11,000 for them. And in fact, it's raised more than £100,000 for charity since it began in 2013. There were over 280 runners who signed up to take part this year, 70 teams entering the 10k relay and 8 people signing up for the 5k solo race. The Manx Wheelers were the winning male team, and the overall winners of the 10k, Team Blend Gals won the female 10k relay, and ESTR Run Coaching won the mixed team category. Lee Worsfold was a solo runner who won the 5k event, and there were also spot prizes awarded as well to Team Leg Miserable, Hair of the Dog and Varley's Angels. Incidentally, Manx Radio supported this event. They also entered the relay and they came 60th in their 60th anniversary year, which was, of course, completely planned. Let's turn our attention to the stock market report brought to you by Ramsey Crookall. Well, UK stocks opened higher today, with energy stocks surging amidst fears of a widening conflict in the Middle East. European stocks were mixed as signs of escalating tensions in the Middle East offset hopes for more interest rate cuts from the Federal Reserve this year. US stocks gave back ground after moving mostly higher early in the session. The major averages have pulled back well off their highs of the session, with the S&P 500 dipping into negative territory. That early strength on Wall Street partly reflected optimism ahead of the release of earnings news from several major technology companies. Gold prices today rose towards $2,400 per ounce as tensions, as we've heard, in the Middle East showed little sign of abating. Currently stands at $2,374. That's off 0.58%. Oil prices also subdued today, heading into this week's meeting of the Organisation of Petroleum Exporting Countries, that's OPEC, and its allies. Prices were flat to slightly lower in European trade after falling by 1.5% on Friday amid persistent concerns over top importer China. Brent currently stands at $78.91. That's off 0.88%. Well, at the close, the FTSE 100 was up 0.16 at 8,299. A short time ago, the Dow Jones stood off 0.22% at 40,494, and the Nasdaq was off 0.08% at 17,342.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, all looking good down at the airport and the steam packet, which is good news. And really on your way home, it's the same things to look out for. Most of these have been in place for quite a while. In Onken, those temporary lights on Whitebridge Road near the School Road junction, they're there for 24 hours a day. Greenfield Road in Douglas is closed for resurfacing. There's a road closed in Annika between Bearcam and Close Kennish. That's also for resurfacing. At Laxey, there are temporary lights on Pinfold Hill. There are also lights on Ramsey Road at the Minorca Hill junction, again 24 hours a day. And until the 5th of August, the Bolera Road is closed at Minorca Hill Crossroads. That's for new service access cover. In Ramsey, temporary lights still on May Hill, 24 hours a day. In St Jude's, there are temporary lights on the Jerby Road. And in Foxdale, there are temporary lights on the main route through the village. That's near the Mines Road turn. That's 24 hours a day for property repairs. If you spot anything when you're out and about, we'd love to hear about it. 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside. It's just gone 5:15. Having politicians approve the appointment of board members for publicly owned companies adds a layer of transparency, according to the Deputy Chief Minister. Well, Jane Poole-Wilson's comments come after Tynwald recently approved the appointment of 2 new non-executive directors for the steam packet company. Concerns were raised, though, in the debate over the political involvement in the appointment process. But Mrs Poole-Wilson has been speaking to Manx Radio's political correspondent Phil Gaughan to explain her point of view.
It starts to get very difficult in Tynwald Court when individuals are being referenced, but they have no right of response. And I think that's a difficult situation to comment on what has happened, why somebody may or may not have done something, and they're not there to be able to speak on their behalf and change that. So I thought it was very important to articulate that in the debate.
And yet, a number of the points that Chris Thomas raised would be questions that many members of the public would be interested to know answers to, wanting to know why was it that the board of directors of the Isle of Man steam packet apparently now has no operational expertise. Would also wonder why is it that directors of a government-owned company need to be approved by Tynwald.
As Chris and all members of Tynwald will know, there are often appointments made that come forward to Tynwald for approval without members of the court having been involved by and large. You know, perhaps only one member of the court may have been involved in the actual recruitment, interviewing and decision-making process, depending on the role. So it is not unusual for there to be a range of appointments that do come forward. And I think that lends an element of transparency, actually, and awareness. So I don't think there's anything unusual in that. And as I say, my concern predominantly was, I think we need to be very distinct between system questions and discussion and not then taking that into what I would worry about might become to more of the personal level. And that's what I felt quite strongly needed to be articulated.
Mr Thomas has told me in an interview that the reason he walked out of the chamber was because of the rebuke that you gave him.
As memory serves, I think he was on his way out as I was standing up. I suppose what I would say is, surely in debate, we all listen to each other and what we have to say. I would expect that no matter what the subject matter, people have different views, people want to articulate what they think and why. It would be normal for people to be in the chamber to listen to those different perspectives.
That's the Deputy Chief Minister Jane Poole-Wilson speaking to Phil there, and you can hear much more on tonight's episode of Agenda with Phil very shortly at 5:30. 18 minutes past 5. Well, a limousine heifer owned by Tom and Lee Kane has been crowned Supreme Champion at this year's Southern District Agricultural Show, which took place at the weekend. The Kanes told Manx Radio that it was a pleasant surprise to take top honours for the second year in a row.
Yeah, it was a bit unexpected, really, because I don't think it's very common for something so young to do so well. I was quite happy she got the limousine championship to start with, and there was a good heifer class there. John Quayle had a nice few heifers in, which she managed to pip. But yeah, she's our first embryo transplant batch of calves, and she's got a brother down there who's quite similar to her. She's probably slightly better than him. But yeah, very surprised to win, really, with something so young. Called Foxrock U Beauty. So we flushed one of our own cows. And then, use a bit of an awkward letter for names. Not many names to start with U, so that's why she's got that name, really. But yeah, she done well. Very happy.
We'll get a word with Lee as well.
Well, Lee, Tom was saying it's not often a young heifer like that can win, but in my view, she's quite a correct heifer. Yeah, I think she's the best we ever had. We usually bring a senior cow and a calf. You know what it's like, Kerry, just the timings are wrong this year. The calves and the cows are too young. The big heifers and calves, we didn't want to bring her because didn't want to feed her hard. So we said we'd bring a couple of young ones and it'll do them good. But I mean, she could actually be in that heifer class for another 2 years yet. So we're surprised, but we had a lot of compliments on her today. So thought she must have been looking all right.
Yeah, totally made up. And Jack, a beef farmer himself,
Yeah, you're always. I'd guessed Jack. I'd guessed right today. I thought it might have been Jack, but when he comes to the middle, you thought it sort of rules the dairy ones out. Really, he's done sheep and beef all his life. He's had good cattle, Jack, so he knows his stuff. And I think he must have picked her out earlier because he didn't spend too much time in the ring.
He wasn't hanging about, was he?
I think he'd done his homework earlier today.
Oh, lovely. Tom and Lee Kane talking there to Kiri and Simon after the success at the Southern District Agricultural Show at the weekend. 5:20. Well, there could be some good news for stargazers tonight. It is rumoured the Northern Lights could be putting in an appearance. Do you remember some of those amazing photographs that were taken last time? Well, what we want to know is where it's happening, where are we going to get the best snaps this time? And the person within the know is Howard Parkin, who joins us on the line now. Howard, first of all, can you just give us a very brief explanation of what exactly is happening tonight?
Well, we've got the possibility of seeing another display of the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. Now, you remember, you've already mentioned on the 10th of May, we had a wonderful display because the sun erupted, literally a flare on the solar surface erupted on the sun. And the material from the sun, the plasma, the solar wind that erupted from the sun, intercepted the Earth in its orbital path and gave us this wonderful display of the aurora, which was seen as far south as places like Florida and places like Madeira. Well, there is a possibility there's been some more activity on the sun because the sun goes through an 11-year cycle, and this is the peak of the 11-year cycle. And so there's a possibility we could get some more aurora tonight.
OK, what we need to know, Howard, is where are we going to get the best pictures?
The best place you're going to get to see the pictures is anywhere where you've got a northern horizon. The aurora tends to be low on the horizon because it's so active, the sun at the moment. It might be higher up. You might see it from places where you haven't got a northern horizon. I know it was seen, for instance, from Groudle Head and places like that. But don't rely on that. If you've got the ability to do it, go somewhere where you can see the northern horizon, and then you've got more chance of seeing more intense, more colourful and more of the display. So anytime, and the trouble is we don't get beyond what we call astronomical twilight till the 2nd of August, so we don't officially get any nighttime until the 2nd of August, believe it or not. But it's still pretty dark around midnight till 2 o'clock, that sort of time. So you really need to be looking around midnight onwards. But don't despair. If we don't see it this time, there's a very real possibility that we could get another display anytime in the next 6 months because, as I say, the sun goes through this cycle. And it's been quite dramatic this year with the display, as I say, on the 10th of May was really spectacular. And we're very hopeful. We might get another one tonight or indeed in a few days' time.
Fingers crossed. Will you be heading out tonight, Howard?
I most certainly will. I'll be looking for it. I mean, I live in Onchan and we've got a reasonable view of the northern horizon over sort of Onchan Head looking towards Snape Fell. But if it's really clear, that's the other key factor, of course. If the sky's got to be clear, I'll probably head up to somewhere like the veranda. Not the veranda, but you go past the veranda and you're looking over by Guthries and that sort of area where you can see over the Northern Plain. That's a good spot to go to if you're from the east of the island. But always worth looking for a northern horizon. But put your head outside about 10, 11 o'clock-ish if it's clear. Well worth making the journey, and who knows, we might see some more spectacular images of this marvellous natural display which is the Northern Lights.
Really hope so. Howard Parkin, thank you so much indeed. And if you do get any great photographs tonight, please do share them with us. We'd love to see them. 5:23. Let's turn our attention to sport. And FC Isle of Man's manager says there's definitely room for improvement after his side surrendered a 2-goal lead to draw 2-2 with Chadderton at the Bowl in their first game of the new season at the weekend. But Paul Jones is confident his team can get valuable points going forward with a large number of away games between now and October.
You know, I think there was lots of good play and calm play at times in first half in particular, but also elements of the second half. I thought we had some really good attacking play from within our half and also in the opposition's half. You know, we weren't at the races defensively and out of possession like we had been during pre-season, and there's maybe other factors to consider around that, but I thought we were a little bit too deep at times and we didn't really get up high enough enough to cause Chellison some problems, and then they were able to expose, some of the gaps at times. So yeah, on the whole, it's a reasonable start, but I know, and the players know, that we can do an awful lot better, and we're looking forward to seeing that in the games ahead.
Looking forward, a quick turnaround. You've got Earlham on Tuesday night, and 11 of your first 15 games are away from home. How much graft has got to go into the next couple of months with all the travelling, not just trying to get results on the pitch?
Yeah, it's a huge ask for everybody involved with the club, really, to get those 11 games out of the next 15 sorted. So, it's enjoyable. You get you in a nice run, especially if you're playing well, obviously. It's and getting some points, it's good. So yeah, hopefully will set us up quite nicely. Like I think I've said to you before, sometimes it's easier to go away and not play with any expectation and not have the home fans, around, because people are happy to make a few mistakes, or maybe being a little bit more risky in time in certain areas, in attacking areas. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it. It's going to take a lot out of everybody, but we've got a few plans in terms of how we approach September, October, November to make sure everyone's fresh and healthy, but we need to make sure we're in a really good place from a performance level and a league position in order to do that.
That's the Ravens manager Paul Jones, as I mentioned, playing Earlham tomorrow night. At 5:25, we're just seeing that it was a 17-year-old who was arrested over that incident in Southport. There'll be more news on that as the evening progresses. Just staying with sport then, and it was the UCI Gran Fondo at the weekend. Thank goodness this year it was blessed with good weather. I seem to remember last year there was an absolute downpour. Well, an incredible 218 riders finished the race yesterday. The winner, Corin Leeming, coming first in 3 hours, 48 minutes and 41 seconds. Such an incredible achievement. Second was Will Draper, literally just a couple of seconds behind. And third was Marcus Christie in 3 hours, 54 minutes and 38 seconds. The first woman over the line was Jennifer Powell in 4 hours, 17 minutes and 25 seconds. Rushden United has confirmed Andrew Moody will now continue in his role as first team manager. That announcement comes after the Southern club initially began searching last month for someone else to take up the post. And Jamie Coward will be reunited with the Ted Wolfe racing team for the 2024 Manx Grand Prix, which unbelievably is less than 3 weeks away. I think it's 3 weeks yesterday, isn't it, when it starts? The rider from Hebden Bridge will be on board the team's 350cc Craven Honda in the Classic Junior race, and he will be also taking the Classic Senior contest as well. Well, that is just about all from Update this evening. This half-hour news roundup will be shortly available to download as a podcast. As ever, if you've got a news story to share, particularly if it's a good news story from your community, we'd really love to hear from you. newsroom@manxradio.com is the email address to get in touch. Coming up next this evening, it is Agenda with Phil Gaughan. Then Dave Moore will be here with Greatest Hits from 6 p.m, followed by Time for Brass with Ian Cottier. And then Rianne will be rounding off your Monday for you with After Hours. Breakfast with Ben will be back at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. So whatever you're doing for the rest of the evening, particularly if you are heading out to try and spot the Northern Lights, remember to share those photographs with us. Let's keep our fingers crossed. I think the weather forecast, it's not going to be too bad. So hopefully you get some great snaps. And I'll be back with you at 5 p.m. tomorrow.